not necessarily go in looking for the one that makes the most money, because that usually doesn't work out well, but just finding that niche that interests you. And when you get into real estate, it's like doors, one door leads to another, and you want to get to that fifth door, but you can't jump there. You got to go through these other doors. And so you just get in, and then over time, you just kind of get drawn to a niche. And if you become good at it, you will make money and you will have opportunities. They come the longer you're in there. And that's kind of how it's worked with us.
The JobGuppy podcast is on a mission to help career explorers and job seekers find out from real people what a specific career or job is really like on a day-to-day basis. Join me, your host, Chris Hodges, as we dive in and explore jobs with each guest. You'll hear from experienced working professionals with transparent, realistic, and job-specific insight about the daily roles and their career journey. We go on to explore other topics like job search recommendations and income and salaries. You'll hear answers to questions like, do I need to go to college for this job? How much college? What is your work-life balance like? What do you like or dislike, or what would you do different? And if you don't like what you hear about one job role, we discuss alternative job titles to explore related to the same industry. And my favorite part is the end, where the guest shares their inspirational insight and recommendations for the next person wanting to get started on their career journey. I would like to emphasize that this episode is a recording I did in the early days of the JobGuppy podcast, where I was experimenting and learning a lot about recording equipment. So you may notice the audio is not as pristine as one might expect, but I hope you can still enjoy this episode and that the content alone becomes the focus of all your attention. In this episode, we talk about what a career in residential real estate can be like. This includes flipping homes where you buy the home, remodel and fix it up as needed, and then turn around and sell it. This can also include holding on to multiple homes for the purpose of short-term and long-term rental property. This is something our guest today, Jason Grote, does for a full-time career. Jason also works with his wife, who is a realtor and helps with the business, and other family members also participate in the business, so for Jason, it really is a family affair. Jason shares some behind-the-scenes activities like how much he is a general contractor and manages projects in addition to just being an entrepreneur and dealing with the finances of the business. He covers his background and how that led him into this business and the ups and downs along the way. And if you're interested in how to find out more or to get more involved, he mentions a few websites and forums to look up. These will be in the show notes on the JobGuppy page along with Jason's interview.
If I had a title, it would be simply just residential real estate investor, which is actually kind of a generic title, which I can go into in a minute. But I'm in partnership with my wife, my mom, and my dad. We've been in partnership since 2006 doing this. And we do all things residential real estate. We have delved a little bit into commercial real estate, but mostly investing, which means basically buying property and selling it yourself, taking possession of property, owning real estate assets, and doing different things with them, from flipping houses to building houses and selling them to long-term rentals and even short-term rentals.
So that's your team, basically. It sounds like about 4 people, family. Can sure maybe have some insight, or maybe you don't want to say it, about the ins and outs of working with family and business, but that might be another video. So is everybody kind of equal partners?
We are. It's mostly my dad and I. He's kind of the back end, does the finances, the books. I'm kind of the boots on the ground. My wife is a licensed real estate agent, and my mom used to come in and help us design stuff. We've kind of shifted gears on that a little bit, but we all talk through a lot of different things together. So it's actually been great as a family partnership.
Giving yourself maybe that title, boots on the ground, how's your time split up over a week or even a month if it's on a cyclical basis? Are there cycles to it?
Sure. One of the things that attracted me to real estate investing was that it's not in the office. I was actually a computer science major in college, and didn't really like being behind a cubicle. It wasn't really for me. So I was very attracted to real estate because you're out and about looking at houses, doing things like that, meeting people. So there is, of course, office work in our business specifically. There is some accounting stuff, marketing, but I would say on a week basis, and it does vary from week to week. I'm doing office work, maybe, 8 to 10, 12 hours a week. And then in the field, depending on where our projects are at. So a little side note, in real estate investing, when you're doing flipping houses and construction, you're also very much involved in construction. So I'm almost just as much as a general contractor as I am a real estate investor. So when I've got projects under construction, I'm in the field quite a bit, handling subs, getting materials, stuff like that.
So it's actually probably a little cyclical then.
It is. In a residential real estate, you have the marketing to obtain a property, and then you have finding properties, looking at properties, analyzing real estate properties, and then making offers on them. And then once you have them under contract, the process of getting them to closing with the financing. We deal with different lenders, private money investors and partners. And then once you have taken possession of the property, the plan for the property, what you're going to do, if it's doing a remodel in the house, or if it's an empty vacant lot, you're building a house. So the process of preparing for construction, and then the construction itself. And then at the end of the construction, the marketing it for sale, if that's what you're doing. Sometimes we do we have some long-term properties and some short-term rentals that we prepare for that. But typically we're selling them. And so then that's when it gets handed over to my wife, and she markets it. And then we go through the process now as the seller of the property, going to closing, and then paydays at the end of those.
I would assume you'd have to be one, pretty self-motivated if you're going to do well at this job. Business is not going to come to you. You're going to have to hit the streets. You'd also have to be good with money, planning, budgeting, because it sounds like this isn't like you're getting a paycheck every Friday. Would those be true assessments? If somebody was wanting to get into this, those are some traits they probably need to look in their life right now and see if they think they have that available or can get there.
This is true, yeah. And we have had some hiccups. So in 2012, my wife and I had to go back to work because we didn't have enough properties coming in through the funnel, through the marketing funnel. We made some missteps, got ourselves a little bit in debt as a business. So my wife and I actually had to go get a job, work for someone else for about a year until we could get back on top. So there is that concern. My dad's the money man. He does a great job of helping us, budget out. Hey, we're gonna need some some income in the next 60, 90 days. So it adjusts what we do with properties sometimes. So it seems like every few weeks we're having a conversation about what we need to do with the properties we have, what we have coming up, and obviously sometimes shifting gears and changing our initial plans just to keep the money rolling in, because we have to have cash flow, but then we're also putting away assets to build a portfolio. So we're always balancing that. But once again, we've been doing this since 2006. So it's been, a pretty long and slow progression. Most real estate investors go into this differently, and their timeline looks different. It's pretty dynamic. So, every story is going to be unique, but ours has been 16 years. We've done it full time since 2009. That's when my wife and I sold our previous businesses, and we've been full time in real estate since 2009 and 10. That's when we sold her business and my business, and had to go to work in 2012. But since then, we have been, doing pretty well, and it's gone well.
Good. Yeah, that is a long time. I would call that pretty successful to have done it so long and still be able to be doing it. So congratulations there. So I would say it takes a lot of fortitude for that. So something to talk to somebody looking into getting into, being a self-employed entrepreneur. You mentioned something earlier about you didn't want to work in an office. You went to school for computer science, but you knew you didn't want to go into a cube. So it's not just a given that you're going to take a job in your industry or to be self-employed. It's not just a given that, okay, I get to do what I want, not work in a cube, not have a boss. I would say it takes a lot of self drive to at that point create a lifestyle for yourself. It's not just about not working in a cube environment. It's also about what are you going to do then with your time, to make up for that time you're not sitting in a cube. That's going to provide a paycheck or a lifestyle for you that you want. So I would say that's pretty important for somebody to pay attention to. It's not just about getting in. I think you'll hear a lot of people say, "I don't want to work in an office," but it doesn't. It doesn't end there. It's like, so what do you? What else are you going to do then? Uh, so thanks for giving some of those insight into what you do and how you've had to push through and how it's not always successful. I think that's important to highlight that there's times you're going to have hiccups and what your reaction is going to be to those hiccups. It may determine a lot and how you move forward after that. Is there anything about your job that would you think people would be surprised to find out?
I would say it is sold to be a little glamorous. It is this kind of stuff is on TV a lot. Most people keep their job and do this on the side. Me and my wife we were already self-employed, so we did have our businesses. So we had with other businesses. So in a sense, we were employed already when we started this, and then when we could transition to doing this full time, we did. But a lot of people, just think they could just jump in and go. That's a real risk unless your financial needs are very low, which my wife and I we lived very meagerly because our businesses before were very, they didn't provide much, so we lived very simply. And that's the other thing, a lot of people want to kind of live above their means, and when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes there's not a whole lot of check on you with that. So I think it's important to really live well below your means as an entrepreneur, and let play it safe, and don't you're already taking a risk being an entrepreneur. Don't increase your risk by trying to live your dream in the beginning financially, whatever that is.
Yeah, no, that's great insight because and that's what one of the things I'm trying to get from out of some of these sessions is more about what is the reality of the everyday life. Not you get to hear a lot of what happened from somebody who's made millions of dollars, what they did throughout it, and a 3 hour session or maybe a work series or something like that. But you don't get that 16 years that you put into what you've been doing. You know, I don't know how many of them would come out and unglamorize it for people to know what they're getting into. I guess would be the way I would look at it. It's glamorized a lot because they're trying to sell a package or they're trying to sell a series or a seminar. But how do you unglamorize it and let people know that this is what it's actually really like? And if you're fortunate, maybe it goes that way. But there's a reality to it too, the unglamorous side of it. And that's kind of like what is that like on a day to day basis, kind of lifestyle. So thanks for really highlighting that. And, maybe you started off with some of that glamour in mind. I don't know, or did you just kind of start off what you did? Yeah.
I chased money pretty hard, I would say, and I like the idea of being having freedom, right? Not being locked into a 9 to 5, if you will. So I was willing to jump out. It started with a car business. I was in the car business, and then I wanted to go start my own car business. So I started a used car business, and it turned into a taxi cab company in San Marcos. And so it just kind of progressed. And that's pretty typical of entrepreneurs. They just kind of bounce around till they find that thing. So and for us, it just happened to be real estate. God blessed our efforts, and we just stuck with it, and eventually we got to a place where now we have a better income and a lifestyle. A lot of things that we wanted we're achieving now, but it took a while. So the glamour is the hard part. It's the thing that discourages people when they don't see it happen. But I mean, this is life. Nothing good comes easy, right?
Okay. Is there anything about your job, like I guess that what would you rather highlight? Things about your job that you do like, or something about your job that you dislike?
I just kind of, if you will, I hate to say it this way, but I fell in love with real estate. I just love talking about it. I love the creativity of it. How dynamic it is. It's just cool. And flipping houses is what we started doing initially. So we take, take something dirty and messed up and used and had very little hope, and then just pour into it and create something fresh and new, and just kind of revitalize it. And that was kind of rewarding, and the creativity that went into that was fun. But I enjoy just real estate in general, just the economics of it. Um, you it's just fascinating to me. So I believe home is where the heart is. So when you're dealing with people, real estate's about people. So that's why one of the things I love is just working with people, meeting people. So real estate is the people business more than houses and land. It's really about people. So that's the part I like.
It's a good takeaway. So, as a realtor, do you have to, or self-employed, you probably don't have to do certifications or ongoing training. But as a realtor, is there anything that people should know that when they get into that, they're going to have to like pay fees or continually keep something up? Ongoing, like kind of a, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to have to do that every single year.
What I'm doing doesn't require any certification, um, any renewed training. Because in the state of Texas, like many states, you can legally buy and sell houses. You can go under contract without real estate agency to buy, and you can go under real estate contract to sell without agencies. It's just a matter of just knowing how to do the business and perform it. Now, I do obviously lean on accredited people and certified people that are much smarter than me to do all the little things that you need. But my wife, yeah, she has to go through it. And of course, her being a real estate agent gives us access to comparable sales, the data that drives when we buy something. We know if it's a good deal by looking at the data. So that's been an integral part of our business, is Catherine being a real estate a real estate agent. And then when we go to sell them, we get to save that commission, the 3% on her side. We get to save, and of course we've sold a lot, so that's been in our model. So it's worked out pretty well. But no, every year or two she has to grind out some training.
Are there networks, like specific networks that you're a part of? If you were looking stuff up on the internet or paying membership fees to be part of networking, like who do you reach out to for that circle of, whether it be, I'd say more self-employed in this case of, just hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to network with other entrepreneurs. Like, what is the latest trends? What's other people working on?
I have a few groups. Some are social media, and some are actual meetups. I don't. With COVID, there wasn't much meetups going on, so I actually haven't been to a meetup in a while. But some of the resources I would suggest. In fact, I give to anybody wanting to get into real estate. I tell them to go to biggerpockets.com, and it's a national website that is all about real estate. And it's I don't know, at this point, hundreds of thousands of investors or people seeking to get into investments, or sometimes it's just homeowners looking for some answers to different real estate needs. But huge forum, tons of questions, tons of podcasts. There's so much information there. You can just kind of dig in. And then you can even network and meet people, which I've met quite a few people that I've actually done business with through that website. So that's biggerpockets.com. And then locally, just about every major city, and I say major, any city with at least 30, 40,000 people is going to have some sort of real estate investment group. You can just Google it. Austin has several. Here in Austin, there's a Facebook group called Investor Underground. I'm a member of that. I've met people through there, asked questions. I've actually purchased a property through that thing, just connected with someone that was marketing something and ended up purchasing it. So in the real estate world, there's networking abound. Real estate people know how to network, and of course it's a people business. So the more you network, really the more successful I think you'll be. The more you'll learn, the more mature you'll grow as a professional in the industry.
Are these forums good for, let's say, somebody new? Like, let's say you were talking to somebody in high school. Are they just kind of graduated and they're wondering if they want to get into this? Are those forums beneficial for them to be a part of?
Absolutely. In fact, most local meetup groups for real estate investing are I mean, they vary, but they're highly geared towards beginners. And they usually have people there selling their products, like whether it's lenders trying to connect with them, real estate agents, insurance, some people selling their programs, their mentoring programs. There's all that. Biggerpockets.com to me is the no-brainer. You can do it you can learn so much from your couch. You know what I mean? Just there's literally hundreds of podcasts and forums where you can search and just read. And I mean, and it's definitely beginner friendly. Absolutely.
Okay. No, that's great. That's what this is kind of geared toward, those people looking to get into it. So I don't want to jump too far down the road for them where they feel like, well, how did you get there? It's like, where did they get started? That's, I think, where a lot of people look for that help. So that's great that the network's already built up like that.
It is.
So if you were still talking along those lines of somebody new getting into this, given that you've been in self-employed for many years now, what advice, would you do anything different when you started? Like, would you start off differently? What do you have any thoughts on that, reflecting back, that you might tell somebody, hey, if you're going to do what I'm doing, like, here's something I would do different?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One of them is I would network more. In the beginning, we didn't do a ton. We did a little bit and then just kind of went on our own and just kind of grinded some things out. I think we could have grown faster if we would have really stayed connected, learned more from other people. A lot of these resources weren't actually around, like Bigger Pockets, when we first started. So I think, I think I would have networked and to probably taken a little more, I hate to say risk, but I would have been a little more aggressive. I think it would have been a little more bold in doing some things. We were ultra conservative. We're definitely more risk takers even now, some years later. But I think in the beginning, I would have taken a little bit more risk.
Do you have any purposeful or intentional habits that you have that you think help you?
I would say some of the things that I've done that have been effective, that I think I see others do not, is I keep the main thing, at least I think I do. And that is God, family, friends, relationships. I know it sounds corny a little bit, but it is, I don't know how to explain it, but looking back, it's just been the strength to even get through things that we probably wouldn't get through if we were hustling. Like, there's just some things you can't make up with hustle. So we are taught in this age to hustle. Everybody's all about the hustle, and the diligent hand that does make rich, but there is more important things. So I would say we've done that. We've been disciplined there. We've said no to some things. And honestly, networking was one of the things we said no to because there was typically at night. We had kids, and we made that a priority. So speaking out both sides of my mouth there, but yeah, I would say keeping the main thing, and having real relationships, not just building relationships in your entrepreneurial circles just to get what you can out of people. I think that just backfires. It just doesn't work.
No, that's great insight. What I hear from that is you made some priorities early on. We talked, I guess, about some things you would do different starting out, but some of the things, I guess you could call it, that sounds like what my interpretation would be, that you did do well, based on maybe some of my priorities too, but you made some priorities early on and you stuck with those priorities. You didn't make a moving priority list, and you just kind of set some things that are important early on in your ventures, and you stuck with that all the way through, and it helped you make decisions, and it guided your decision making to keep those priorities as your priorities. So I would actually look at that as a good, something you would do to recommend to other people. So thanks for sharing that. And as we kind of get close to wrapping up here, any advice? I know it sounds like we kind of talked through that, but anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on, advice you might have, anything like that?
I would say anybody that wants to get into real estate, it intrigues them. I mean, that's how it started with us. We were just intrigued by it, and then the more we got into it, the more we like really just enjoyed it. First of all, I think that's the test. Someone that if they're getting into real estate because they want to make a lot of money or whatever, unless they really love or enjoy real estate, it's just not going to work. That's my opinion. So if you're intrigued by it, maybe because there's an interest. And then there's so many different ways to get into real estate. You can be an appraiser. You can be a realtor. You can be a third-party inspector. You can, do wholesaling, which is a whole other conversation. There's the commercial side, the residential side of real estate. So, you can be an apartment locator. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do, and there's so many niches. And usually if you just jump in and start looking around, you'll just kind of land in a niche, something that interests you. And I think that's the best way to go about it. Not necessarily go in looking for the one that makes the most money, because that usually doesn't work out well, but just finding that niche that interests you. And when you get into real estate, it's like doors, one door leads to another, and you want to get to that fifth door, but you can't jump there. You got to go through these other doors. And so you just get in, and then over time, you just kind of get drawn to a niche. And if you become good at it, you will make money, and you will have opportunities. They come the longer you're in there. And that's kind of how it's worked with us. We just kind of dug in, and then over time, just like doors opened, and it's been a fun ride. But it doesn't happen overnight. But real estate is a fun gig.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. Well, I appreciate your time today. And hopefully this helps somebody out there who's been wondering what it's like, where they split their time up. If they want to get into this, where would they get started? What's the things to, maybe think about as they get into it in the early stages. So I appreciate your time and help with everything. And hope this helps somebody figure out where they need.
I hope so too. That's awesome. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for putting this together, Chris.
If you like what you hear and want to take the next steps in exploring your career after listening to an episode, go to JobGuppy.com to see a summary and helpful links to things mentioned during the interview, like industry-specific forums or websites, example job searches, career ladders, and degree programs or trade school recommendations. The hope is you now have more information than you did before from the guest on the podcast to help you move forward with the next steps on your career exploration journey. Tune in each week as JobGuppy continues to explore a million jobs in the sea.